For generations, the quaint French town of Soufrière has been known to have varied and unique cultural and natural attributes like no other tourist destination in the Caribbean, if not the world. Its majestic World Heritage Twin Peaks, the Pitons, beckon as you arrive by land or sea. A must-stop is at the world's only drive-in volcano with its bubbling sulfur springs and the therapeutic properties inherent in the mineral baths and warm mud-like pools, which in essence is a natural steaming spa, are guaranteed, say the experts, to make you look, if not feel, years younger. Then there are nature walks in beautiful botanical gardens, rainforests, and a waterfall. Indeed, a cameraman's delight. The marine and coastal environment is similarly rich and includes the island's best dive sites, which have become increasingly attractive to visiting yachtsmen. Soufrière also boasts some of the leading tourist resorts in the world, complemented by its charming and hospitable people, which is now legendary. And as if that were not enough, the residents have now discovered UWP candidate for the Soufrière-Fonsèja constituency, Allen Chastanet.
This institution, at this particular time, has given Saint Lucia an opportunity to increase its productivity and its competitiveness in the world today, where those two things have become the cornerstone of our success. They have made available to thousands of you the opportunity and the ability, the affordability to get a degree, both undergraduate and graduate. And I think that we all owe Monroe College a great round of applause. The hospitality program in which we've partnered with Monroe College, not in financial terms, but in moral terms, is a critical program at this time. Hospitality has become the #1 industry in this country, accounting for over 64% of this country's GDP, but more importantly, 85% of our region's foreign exchange. And unfortunately, we have lagged behind in terms of adapting our educational system to adapt to making our people more competitive in this sector. The hospitality program, which was commenced, as Dr. Ephraim has indicated, has already graduated over 350 students. We recently had more meetings with the cruise sector, and now 8 of the cruise lines have now signed on to this program. Even more recently, at a meeting in Puerto Rico, Carnival Cruise Lines has decided to open up a bar called the Red Pub, which will only be selling Caribbean rums and Caribbean products, and are now in search of well over 1,000 bartenders, which we hope the majority of them will be supplied through this program. There's over 45,000 jobs being generated by the cruise industry per year. The opportunity is great. St. Lucians can compete. We can provide innovation in the world today. And you need to go out there with that in mind. And don't think of it of just putting food on the plate, but looking for much broader and bigger goals in order to be able to make a bigger contribution to your country. So again, to Monroe College, congratulations, and most importantly to you hardworking students, best of luck and good fortune. Thank you. I was given an opportunity to do a lot of good things. I mean, we started the Let's Be the Best program. We completely revamped how the tourist board functioned. We were able to get major charters coming into Saint Lucia. But probably the things I remember the most about was the Saint Lucia Jazz Festival. And the other one was, one of the first things I did was to cause the sulfur springs, which was vested in the Saint Lucia Tourist Board, for us to transfer it to the Soufrière Foundation. So it was really to start making that separation between product development and marketing. And I felt with the resources that the Tourist Board had, that it ought to focus exclusively on the marketing and the product development should be left to the other institutions. And given the work that I had done in my previous years as an economist, I clearly understood that there was a Soufrière Foundation and the opportunity for somebody to properly administer the sulfur springs, and we did that. So it was an exciting time for me. I got a lot of recognition, Saint Lucia got a lot of recognition. We went from negative growth to 6% in the first year and a half to 12% the following year, and my last year we had 22% growth in tourism, and it was a great stepping stone. He said he would like to make me the Minister of Tourism. Would I be willing to come on board? My family members supported the decision to be able to go into politics. I still think that we've not been able to increase the awareness that people have an appreciation of how tourism works. The importance of marketing. I mean, I still hear people talking about when we spend money marketing, that's money that could be used for the hospital or be used for building roads or for education. Tourism is what's generating the income for Saint Lucia, so tourism is really paying for those things. Within the government, I think that I've been able to show that tourism is a science. We can predict fairly accurately what our arrivals are going to be based on the amount of seats that we have and what's happening economically and how much money we're spending. We've had to spend money in a very targeted way, but we've shown some things. I mean, The Bachelor saw a huge increase in awareness to Saint Lucia, but The Bachelor also should be a lesson to us. That here you had a TV show that was 4 hours of prime time on ABC. Now, if I had to buy that kind of presence, you know, would be close to $30 million US in advertising that I would have to do to make up that kind of number. We did several events. The CHA Marketplace was a massive event. First time that anyone in the Eastern Caribbean had hosted that event. And remember that when we decided to host that event, the Pralet Hotel and the Raffles Hotel was supposed to be open. But as it was, you know, Bay Gardens Beach and Cap Maison had opened, the Calabash had opened, and they really got the benefit of having all those tour operators that were here. And there were a lot of tour operators who had not been to Saint Lucia for many years, and I think that contributed significantly in us moving forward. The FCCA conference was the first time that Saint Lucia had hosted it. We were looking to do the Castries redevelopment. We were looking to expand our role in the cruise industry. And part of what we did is we brought the cruise ship executives to Soufrière. And we had a one-day session in Soufrière specifically talking about our vision plan, which included the Monroe College hospitality program. We spent $3.5 million on the Boxing in Paradise. And we were live on Showtime Boxing. So for 4 hours, Saint Lucia was live on Showtime. There was over 4 million people that viewed the event. Whereas we spend $6 million on jazz, and we get very limited exposure in comparison to what Boxing in Paradise brought. And I remember for that event in particular, there was a certain level of nationalism and pride. There's also a link between sports and tourism. And I think that's something that we would definitely like to continue. We've now proven to the boxing world that we can hold an event like that here. And we have to look at it not only from its impact on a local basis, but from a tourism perspective, how many people watch the show. Being on TV on a consistent basis is very critical. Soufrière used to be the most prominent town. In fact, second only to Castries. And I saw all these attributes and these assets that the town possessed. And yet, it was lagging behind. And then when I looked at the linkages between agriculture, small businesses, tourism, it really fit into who Allen Chastanet was, because I have a very broader view of how things can be achieved. I also recognize that in Soufrière, most of the people depend on the constituency for their living. So I felt that people weren't as caught up into whether I spoke Creole, where I came from. They really wanted to see if they could get a candidate that could deliver to them a better way of life. So my family's history is from Soufrière. I spent my summer vacations here, and I've spent a lot of time over the years in Soufrière. And obviously, as the Minister of Tourism, I felt that Saint Lucia's tourism product would be limited by what's going on here in Soufrière. And while we have many world-class hotels here in Soufrière, the town itself was not world-class. So it meant that the town was not fully benefiting, but nor are the hotels. So it's only when you get both of those things working together that Soufrière now can go to a completely different level. So once the decision had been made
and I had been accepted and nominated by the people. There was a petition signed by over 800 people requesting that I come to run for United Workers' Party here in Soufrière. I really want to thank the people for that confidence they exhibited in me from very early. We came in here, we had a fantastic launch, and I went busily about putting together our plans, meeting with the different communities in terms of understanding what their needs were. And then unfortunately we had the devastation of Thomas. And one really didn't have time to think, one just had to react. And during those days I had a dual responsibility, because I was still Minister of Tourism, and clearly my responsibility, even though I was not the representative, I was the designated representative of the United Workers' Party. So we did a phenomenal job, I thought, of getting the hotel products and the tourism product up and working very quickly with as minimum negative impact as possible. But I would spend the other half of my day here in Soufrière. And remember, once I came into Soufrière, because the cell towers were not working, I mean, I was basically incommunicado. But we were very successful in getting the media down here and drawing attention to what had taken place. We were able to get a lot of supplies, which we brought down on the catamaran boats, literally 4, 5, 6 trips a day. And then working and holding the community's hand, because people were in shock. And I think that people needed confidence to know that things would get better. So we focused heavily on the Fontaine-Jacques area. Obviously there was a tremendous loss of life and also of people's homes. The Prime Minister put together a committee called the Redevelopment Committee, based in his ministry, specifically for Fontaine-Jacques. Resources were to go to the aid agencies and everybody else to earmark specific projects, which was done. But you know, these aid agencies take time to be able to get going. I really want to thank Minister Guy Joseph, because even with his own constituency being as impacted as it was, and with the normal demands that he had, he was able to find time to come down here personally on a regular basis and make as many impediments disappear. So the desilting of the river, the clearing of the roads, the farmers up in Dewash is an example, that we were able to get that road reopened on a priority basis. The roads going up to Ladera, we needed clearing, he was able to get that done. Even more recently, when we had the landslip by Laho, almost immediately that night we were working on getting the stuff cleared. So he did a fantastic job in regards to that. As we were now getting later in the year, we started able to implement projects. One of the first ones was water up in Diamond. When we met the people in Diamond, they told me that they really didn't want to talk to me until I brought water. They said too many politicians in the past had given them stones to hold. And once we had water, we would talk, because they've been waiting for water for over 45 years. We were able to get the Minister of Communications and Works to put together a plan with Wasco to put in water there. We were then very lucky that Seydu was wrapping up, and they had extra resources, and the Prime Minister allowed us to use those resources for the water project in Diamond, which also extended into the Boisdan area. We did footpaths and drainage in Sulphur Springs. The community there had literally been ignored, and many of the people, the older people who were living there, if they had for an emergency, people would have to literally carry them on their back to take them out of the community. We worked up in Mini, a community that had been literally ignored for many, many years. And we were able to put footpaths in there, drainage, because it was so high up that literally whenever they had rainfalls, it was going right through everybody's homes. So we were able to get that situation sorted out. We were extremely lucky that $1 million was made available by a trust fund from Hong Kong to build houses here in Saint Lucia. It was free to go anywhere in Saint Lucia, and we were successful in our bid to get that money allocated here in Mocha, where we now have 30 houses being built. Those 30 houses will be sold at half of the cost of what it cost to build, and some of the houses will be given for free. All the people have to do is pay for the land. The monies that we receive back will go back into to build more houses. And I'm glad that the people from Fontaine-Jacques and Mocha have been able to benefit from that. There's no way of getting people's self-esteem to be raised if you're going to treat them with disrespect. So you have over 10,000 people living in the community. We had one football field and we had one basketball court. And none of them were in any good condition. So the lights weren't functioning, the backboards were broken, the thing hadn't been paved for a while. You had a netball court, lights weren't working, fence was dilapidated, hadn't been repainted. So we felt that we had to improve the sporting fraternity. We now are able to get lights coming into the mini stadium. I'd like to say that the quality of the lights are going to be second only to Beau Saint-Just. So we'll be able to play football, track and field, and cricket with our lights at an international level. We fixed up the basketball courts. We're also looking to put a basketball court in Zeno, also in Boisden. After elections, we're looking to be able to put a basketball court, a multi-purpose court in the Fongelibre area for the communities Moine-Lacroix, Fongelibre, and Deville, because they have nothing. We are working with some of the other communities, Belfond as an example, in terms of clearing up their facilities. We're presently now going to be fixing up the Font-Saint-Jacques playing field. What's been holding up our ability to move ahead with that project has been the river. So once the engineers have given us the green light, we can proceed with that. We're also going to be putting lights in that Font-Saint-Jacques playing field. Healthcare. No one wanted to go to the Soufrière hospital. And when you went there, it wasn't difficult to understand. Basically, we were down to one ward, so men and women shared the same ward. We're fixing up the men's ward. We've already finished the women's ward. We're also putting in a new laundry room. All new laundry equipment is already here. And also we're going to be revitalizing the maternity wing. We then fixed up the Wingsville Road. That Wingsville Road, every time there was major floods, because of the Alcindor Bridge, it got clogged. The water would go through Wingsville area and dig up the road. So what we've done now is the new pedestrian bridge that we're building has no medium in the middle. And so it'll be very high. So even if a bus was coming down from Font-Saint-Jacques or from Faucaco, that it would be able to pass underneath the bridge. And we're also raising the height of the wall in the Wingsville area, as well as, you know, we've now concreted that area. We're now doing the Hummingbird Beach project, which is a critical project, one in terms of enhancing the beach facilities for local Soufrières, but also increasing business opportunities. At present, the entrepreneurs, I call them, of Barron's Drive, which are the water taxi fellas, are carrying a lot of the passengers to Jalousie, to Tikai, and to Allen Chastanet beaches, simply because the facilities are there for those guests. So by enhancing the beach at Hummingbird, we're hoping to get 300-400 tourists on some days coming into that beach. The difference is that those people have not pre-purchased their tours, so they're independent tourists. So we're going to now be setting up small businesses on that beach. Snorkeling, kayaking, bicycle riding, horseback riding. A whole bunch of the tours will be sold specifically from that beach, and we're going to act as an incubator. So we're going to co-sign on the accounts with these small business people and help them in terms of creating world-class products. The other big project we're working on is the two-way bridge coming into town. We're going to have 2 sidewalks and 2 lanes of traffic. And all the electrical wires and water pipes that are on the site will be incorporated into the bridge itself. It's going to take about 8 weeks to be able to finalize that bridge. We have the bridge at Deville, where the people from Fongelibre have been now having to go and drive through Victoria to be able to make it to town. So that bridge now is being built back in a much better position. You know, the old bridge used to be one where you used to drive through the water to get there. Up in Palmis, the showers and the toilet facilities in that area. We also helped them fix up some robes and retaining walls. We're doing the same thing up in Zeno. So we've been very active and getting people involved. But in terms of the vision for Soufrière, we want to build a new hospital. We want to improve the waterfront so that we can see more tourists coming to the waterfront. The dream is to have hotel guests taking a water taxi that want to come into town. The town square is something we want to see improved. We want to create learning centers. So one of the things that we've seen is the quality of education is not where it ought to be in terms of what the results are. Though the Soufrière Comprehensive School has been ranking fairly high, but there are still things, areas of improvement. So we want to put learning centers throughout the communities in which there will be teachers available in those learning centers between the hours of 5 o'clock and 9 o'clock at night. So students can go down there and get assistance with their homework, understanding the computer, because a lot of parents want to help, but don't have the capacity themselves or the time or the energy. Some women are trying to raise 3, 4, 5 kids by themselves. So I think putting these kinds of facilities is going to go a long way in improving the quality of education. The copper factory is only presently producing coconut oil. So we want to be able to now have soap products, we want to have healthcare products. We want to put an agro plant there and grow and expand the role of the copper factory. The copper factory at one point used to hire as many as 150, 180 people. We want to bring it back to its glory days. We're looking to expand the facilities at the sulfur springs to put in a spa. So the clear water as well as the mud baths. The mud baths has been going really well. We're going to add some new features to the mud baths hopefully before the end of this year. And we're going to now develop a really interesting pool for the clear water. So a medicinal value of the volcano, it has greater value to the person. And also it's an attraction that doesn't exist anywhere else in the Caribbean. So it's to move the quality of that asset. The improvement of Tet Paul, the improvement of a lot of the attractions that we have in this area are things that we're going to continue to focus on.
The information on the Chastanet family, as it reached me, is found in the Royal Court Registry of the French and is dated 1890. This also deals with the lands which was given to them. Also, they had authorization to work and to develop the township of Soufrière. The Chastanet lands came in from about bounded with, as we now know it, the Bouton, Jalousie, within a piece of Usmame, taken in the bay, which is now named after the estate and the plantation, Chastanet. It was named after the Chastanet family. W.B. Mutter gave a lot of credit to the Chastanets for the work they did in Soufrière, and particularly what they did into the township of Soufrière with the inhabitants. Mutter also mentioned that Chastanet and others were responsible for the Soufrière township. A lot that was done by the Chastanets stands credit today for the development of the township of Soufrière.
Allen, as a youngster, attended the Methodist school. And from a very young age, he always appeared to be a very outgoing individual who makes friends very quickly. As far as his home life was concerned, this guy feared nothing. When he was probably 5 or 6 years of age, we had a small boat. We'd go out by Pigeon Island. He would ask for in a tube, and he would jump in the sea, in the deep water, totally fearless. And throughout his life, this is the modus operandi of the guy, okay? He went to Stansted College, he became head boy, he was very prominent in the basketball and all that kind of thing. And when he finished there, he went to the university, Bishops, right, also in Quebec. So he spent almost, I would say, 10 to 12 years in Canada. He finishes his education, then he comes to Saint Lucia and to try to get a job. I managed to speak to Roy Rodriguez, and they said there was an opening at the CPU, Central Planning Unit. And about 2 weeks after he got the job, Sir John was going to a trip in Europe, and most of the guys were out. So John wanted somebody to take his notes of him, and like a gopher. And so John became very impressed with him, and he stayed working at the Central Planning Unit for many years. Allen is a people's person. He loves to raise people from the ranks and make them, make something out of them. He's really attracted to people. His focus in life is to increase business for people, make people's lives better. That is the guy. Since he has made that, for the time being, his career, he has to be very disciplined in what he's doing, and he must not take anything for granted. He has to cross his T's and dot his I's, because elections are won on election day.
Allen as a husband is really terrific. He's very, very supportive of me personally and professionally. He's absolutely fantastic, devoted father when he's here. Obviously, the requirements of the position have meant over the last 4.5 years he's gone probably about 60% or more of the time. And sometimes that's very difficult for the children to understand, particularly my son, who is just turned 5. You know, when you hear the pleas of, why isn't daddy here? And you sort of have to say, well, he's busy doing the work of the country. That doesn't mean anything. It doesn't register with a 5-year-old. My daughter is now 8, and I think she's definitely the budding politician in the family. She loves doing all things with her father. I mean, I've had to make a concerted effort to keep her away from the political things because I don't think that's an appropriate place for children. You know, Allen has done a very good job of keeping me away from it because he knows I'm not comfortable with that. That side of things. I support him 1,000%. I support the vision that he personally has. I support the goals. I mean, I live with him and I hear every day, you know, these are the things I want for Soufrière, these are the things I want for Saint Lucia. And sometimes it's difficult to marry, I think, the needs that I have as a wife and a mother with what he has to do. And it's not about complaining or crying about it. It is what it is. That's the reality. But sometimes it's no question. And I'm sure all politicians' wives go through this. I'm not unique in that respect. But it is difficult when, you know, you're trying to do homework with, you know, my son and my daughter's trying to get my attention. And I'm going, where is Allen? Oh, honey, I'm stuck in Soufrière. And it's like, you know, at that point, you're not sure what the right thing is. But I think my daughter certainly has an understanding now, and she's much more appreciative of what he's doing. He has made an effort, particularly in the aftermath of Tomas, to take my daughter Ryan down on a number of occasions to actually physically help partake in distributing the aid, playing with the children down there, working with the children down there to get certain things done, certain projects done. And she has a genuine understanding of what, as much as an 8-year-old can, of what the plight of the people of Soufrière is. And that makes me very proud because she's aware. So when Allen says, oh, I'm sorry, I can't go to this with the kids, I'm going to Soufrière, she actually will say, Daddy, can I go with you? You know, and she puts together from her bedroom, she puts together bags of things, toys and clothes, sometimes new dresses that she has. Admittedly, there are times she doesn't want to part with the new ones, but you do get a sense of her saying, I want to be able to help in my own little way. And as a mother, I have been so proud of my son, who at the time of Tomas had just turned 4. And between 4 and now, every single night when he says his little prayer, it's a short prayer, but he always, of his own volition, includes the children of Soufrière. And it's the cutest thing in the world you've ever heard. But he says his prayer for everybody in the family and people, whatever, and he always says, and I really want to pray for the poor children of Soufrière who have no homes and who don't have this and who don't have that. And every single night of his own, he does it. And I think Allen has done a very good job, at least with our family, of trying to explain. And the reason why it's Soufrière and nowhere else, it's only because Allen has now been exposed as the caretaker to the direct needs of those people. And so the children have a very conscious awareness that there are people substantially less fortunate. And I think Allen, well, both of us, but obviously predominantly Allen, have tried to instill in them how lucky we are as a family, how lucky they are as children. And that it's not enough just to say thank you and lucky, it's thank you for our luck, but to try to also say how can you use the benefits you have received in life, the advantages, to help others. And that has always been something from the day I met Allen that he has always talked about. Even then, I was really struck at how much Allen cared about Saint Lucia and how much he wanted to do. And that has always been an integral part of who Allen Chastanet is, as a father, as a man, and as a person, and as a Saint Lucian, long before there was Allen the politician.
Is you had to have some kind of jetty or tender jetty, and so, because the roads were atrocious. And so we drew up plans, the development committee, and we approached Michael Chastanet. Michael Chastanet said, look, I have $97,000 at the bank. I will loan you that money, and when you do this, give it back to me. What we did is, we said, look, locals could alight for free, but everybody else from outside Soufrière paid $2 US. And this $2 US went to pay back the loan for the jetty. The Soufrière Regional Development Foundation became the catalyst, and it was the government of Soufrière. We had a number of persons as members of the foundation. We had the National Trust. We had government. In fact, that's how Allen got involved. Allen was a young economist in the Ministry of Economic Affairs, and he was attached to the Soufrière Foundation. And there were a number of initiatives abroad. He went with me. I remember we went to New York to meet with partners of livable places. We got a lot of funding from the MacArthur Foundation, the Kellogg's Foundation, with the help of himself. The Sulphur Springs, at the same time we built the jetty, the Sulphur Springs were there. We knew it was government's. So one day we decided we put a bar across the road and start charging people $3 to go there. And we employed, it was 16 people who work every other day. And we found people accepted this, you know, so everybody who came down there. So these were the two streams of revenue we had. Now those streams of revenue were there specifically to redevelop the town. And as you know, the SMMA was another arm of the Soufrière Development Committee. And one of the things the SMMA did, because as you know in Soufrière, because of the limited amount of beach, there was a lot of competition. There were conflicts between the fishermen and the yachtsmen. There were conflicts between the divers and the hoteliers who wanted the boats to stay there. And so the process took several years until now everybody cohabits without a problem. We were able to show that it is possible. You do not have to depend on government revenue to build your community.
It's one thing for us to be here doing our ordinary gigs in the hotel. It's another thing to get on main stage where you're playing alongside the best in the world. The best in the world, you know. And not only that, the mere fact that you're being filmed for an international audience. I mean, the amount of appearances we've had on BET. Just the mere fact that this is going to happen as a result of the festival is going to demand that much more from you. And from that standpoint, I think the festival has helped considerably in raising the standard of music in Saint Lucia. To get on stage with and perform with George Benson and Al Jarreau and George Duke and Earl Klug and who else, the list goes on. That I'm not sure that would have happened for me had it not been for the Jazz Festival. I doubt very much. And it has also helped my profile outside of Saint Lucia. I would imagine that Minister Chastanet probably had to pull teeth to get a lot of things done. And look at where we are today, 21 years after. We've had the best of the best. You know, prior to Jazz Festival Day, people spoke of Saint Lucia and they spoke of the Pitons. Today, they talk of the Jazz Festival. Everywhere I've traveled to perform, people speak of me, and they know I'm from Saint Lucia, they talk of Saint Lucia Jazz. So, in terms of what it has done for Saint Lucia, that's immeasurable. I don't think we can quantify in terms of dollars and cents what this Jazz Festival has done for the country.
He's an action-oriented individual who wants things done sometimes very quickly. As you know, his career in tourism in both the public and private sector spans almost, I think 2-3 decades. First having worked at Windjammer Landing as the VP of Sales and Marketing, and then he moved to Island Outpost in the Bahamas, and then he got involved at Jamaica where he had his longest stint again as VP of Sales and Marketing. So all of these positions we interacted obviously on a regular basis. So he's always out there batting and fighting to get the best for everybody that's involved in the tourism industry. And even up to this day he continues to fight, sometimes alone, without the support of his constituency, the tourism industry, to look at how Saint Lucia could position itself, how we can improve Saint Lucia's status as it relates to the rest of the world, to the rest of the OECS islands. What can I bring to the table that nobody else is doing? And yes, sometimes he takes risks, but I have to say a lot of the times, I think 95% of the time, the risks pay off. Saint Lucia has accomplished, and Allen has been able to attract unprecedented airlift. I would hesitate to guess and say in the history of Saint Lucia. I mean, when one thinks now of the number of seats that we have flying into Saint Lucia, from maybe 9,000 in 2008, 2007 to almost 20,000 seats now. It's a phenomenal achievement. What it does again, it gives us, allows us to bring more people into Saint Lucia because of the frequency of the flights and also the cost of the flights. When one thinks that we now have a daily BA flight, who would ever think that BA would agree to Saint Lucia having a daily flight? I mean, the low-cost carrier, where we wanted to make the fares affordable for the ethnic people coming home to visit their friends and families, as well as our visitors. With the introduction of JetBlue, what we found was that obviously all of a sudden we had a low-cost carrier flying in. It forced some of our other airlines to drop their rates, again making it more affordable for people to come in. And we can look at Canada, where we have now, when years ago we had one Air Canada flight, we now have about 3 to 4 Air Canada flights a week, not to mention WestJet. So what he has done in terms of airlift is phenomenal in increasing the airlift to Saint Lucia, thereby obviously increasing arrivals, because it's always what comes first, the chicken or the egg. If you don't have the airlift, you're not going to have the arrivals, and if you need the arrival, you're going to have to put the airlift in place. People are mesmerized by him when he gets up and he speaks and he delivers his speech. And I think he's very highly regarded and respected, like I said, not just in the Caribbean region, not just in the UK and the US, but he can walk into an office with, say, any CEO of any travel and tourism company, and he'll be welcome. And of course these connections add and enable him to achieve a lot more than, say, anybody else would, because he has developed those friendships over the years, which are lifelong friendships. I mean, Allen believes that what Saint Lucia has going for it, among several other things, and there's something for every person, is this whole idea of romance. Now, why not capitalize on romance? I mean, we have won Best Wedding and Honeymoon Destination 8 years in a row in the world, not just the Caribbean. And as I speak, the tourist board is on its way to Jamaica to collect the award for the 9th year, Best Wedding and Honeymoon Destination. So he's right. Why not piggyback on that fact and the romance and the aura that Saint Lucia has as a romantic destination, and let's work on that.
Well, growing up as a youth, this area was the road there was narrow and the area was very muddy, especially when it rained. Well, everybody is very grateful and happy about the steps, because we no longer have to walk with 2 shoes, one to get from home to the area, to the main road. We now walk with 1 pair of shoes. I think you will do a good job in Soufrière, especially for the youth.
Monsieur Chastanet, c'est un homme qui a aidé nous Soufrière. Et puis s'il vient ici, il dit moi qu'il mange chimique, moi hawa chimique commencer à manger. L'homme là pas quoi pas. La meilleure qui bon manger, moi pas jeter. So c'est lui pas lui me capot. Et moi pas serrer pour dire ça parce que moi c'est un grand monde. Si moi n'y a rien pour faire, c'est Monsieur Chastanet me faire bail. Parce que c'est lui qui a aidé moi.
On behalf of the residents of Paris, I would like to express my heartfelt thanks to the Senator, Mr. Allen Chastanet, for upgrading the conditions of the road and making it more conducive to the motorists and people of the environment.
When I grew up in Diamond, the residents of Diamond never had a proper water supply. And then 2 months ago, Mr. Chastanet visited the community. The people made a request that the main, what they would need most was to have the water supply. And then there came Mr. Chastanet with the magic wand, and that was it. I wish to thank Mr. Chastanet. Kudos to him. He's a man of his word. He talked the talk and he walked the walk.
Moi bien content ça Monsieur Chastanet fait on diamatique ay quoi on dit kay ñoo chimie kay vini bo kay moi avec c'est plus toi calé mental sorti ay bo chimie c'est là bou c'est cercle tout là maintenant tout cercle ou actuellement pas kay ñoo bot ma cercle kay ni chimie kay na vidi pour my bo chimie.
At least 90% of our footballers work either in the hotel industry or construction. Now if you look at it, you come from a construction site and the match is at 4. That leaves almost no time for you to go home, maybe have a shower and get some rest. But with lights on the field, it would help, especially the construction workers, and then come to play a match, say 7 o'clock in the evening. It would be such a great thing for Soufrière right now. For years now, the Soufrière United team has not actually had a good kit, a good uniform. And Allen Chastanet came in and got us a uniform in no time at all. I don't even think it took a month. He got us a brand new uniform, and when I say uniform, I mean a complete kit with the shirt, the bottom, socks, track suits, a complete kit. And the times that we actually went to play games for Soufrière United, I can tell you are well taken care of. I am really, really happy in the effort that he's putting into young people and sports in Soufrière.
With Allen Chastanet, you get a very different individual, somebody who has a lifelong experiences in many different fields. My knowledge of tourism is not just as a hotelier, but as an airline individual, airline executive, as a government official. So I've gone back and forth between the public sector and the private sector many times. My training as an economist has given me the ability to have a bigger picture approach. But being Saint Lucian and understanding the nuances of being Saint Lucian keeps me grounded. My hero is Sir John. My hero was Pierre Trudeau. My hero was Michael Manley. And something that these people had in common was their humbleness and their ability to stay practical with some of the things that they were doing. I feel that here in Soufrière that we have a huge opportunity of making history. I see a willingness and the capacity. So when I hear a hotel wins a world award, so Jade Mountain, best service hotel in the world, Ladera, best hotel in the world. Many of our small properties, La Ho, Fondue, Crystals, Hummingbird Beach, all have shown the ability to provide world-class service, but yet the town itself doesn't have a world-class feeling to it. I think that I have the ability of bringing those pieces together. Where does our culture, education, and economic development, how do those meet and how do they interact? I have a passion for Soufrière because I believe that Saint Lucia will never reach its fullest potential unless Soufrière reaches its own fullest potential. So there is a selfishness in me that wants to see Soufrière prosper. But more importantly, it's when I see people suffering to the extent it hurts me as an individual to see people having to live in some of the conditions that they're having to live in. When I see women having to, with no money, to raise children, we have to make some changes together, all of us. This campaign that we've put together is not about Allen Chastanet. This campaign is about Soufrière. This campaign is not about a politician doing something for you. This campaign is about you and a politician doing something for all of us. This campaign will not work if I do not have the support, the cooperation, and the participation of everyone. The selfishness of individual selfishness must stop in Soufrière. We must start talking well about ourselves. How do we want other people to respect us if we ourselves don't respect ourselves? Just because someone has a different opinion, just because someone prefers a different party, does not make them a bad person. We must be able to talk to each other, share those differences, agree in some cases to be different, but we must think what is best for Soufrière. And sometimes we must do that. So for instance, in this circumstance, when you look at the two candidates that are running in this race, Mr. Dalsaw is an individual that I know and I like. I have had no difficulties with Mr. Dalsaw over the years when we worked together at the Saint Lucia Tourist Board. But Mr. Dalsaw has had an opportunity to deliver to Soufrière all of his aspirations. He was the chairman of the town council and chairman of the Soufrière Foundation while his party was in power. What has happened in the past must stay in the past. It is time to move forward. I believe that I have proven to be a different politician. I have not come to the people in Soufrière and said, vote for me and I will fix these things. I've taken it on my own in some very difficult times to make things happen and put projects on the table and bread in the basket of all Soufriérians. But this is just the beginning. Some of you will see this as an end. Some of you will say that this is a time to take advantage of a politician. Some of you will say the only time the politicians give anything is when elections are coming. I am saying to you, I have put my faith and my trust into you. I'm asking you to put your faith and your trust now into me after I have delivered. And as we say, it's time to believe.
Yo! Soufrière! What you say? Time to believe in Soufrière. Time to believe in yourself. Time to believe in Chastanet. So where you there? Where you there? Put your hands up. Why?
I ain't voting for Labour.
Time to believe.
Labour never deliver.
Time to believe.
Calling all me family and friends. Allen Chastanet we recommend. Soufrière we will achieve.
Time to believe. 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 Time to believe.
Soufrière we will achieve.
Time to believe.
So long every day we ballin'. Labour never give we nothing. How long we stay without water? For less nickel bread and butter.
Down there we feel so neglected. Our children feel so rejected.
I'm talking to all me neighbor. Ikwa Papureba.
I believe a new and better has come.
Ah yes.
Chastanet give us light in the playground.
Ah yes.
Look now we have water up in Diamond.
Ah yes.
15 years Labour cafe and you put your son.
I ain't voting for Labour.
Time to believe.
Labour never deliver.
Time to believe.
Calling all me family and friends.
We are taking Soufrière and Fonse Jack home.
I ain't voting for Labour.